Welcome to the BTM Club in conversation with music legends. And yeah, he's smiling, pretending to be humble. Okay, we have this every time we have a legend on. It's like you're here for a reason because you are a legend. And today we are not falling short by any measure. We have the one and only Mr. Howard Hewett.
How
Well,
are you? How you doing there?
I just
How
have
are
to
you? Goodness.
genuflect before this music god, and then we move on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
It's lovely to have you with us. I've been trying to get you for a while, and I know you've been busy, busy, busy. So,
Crazy, crazy busy, but that's thank God. That's how it always is,
yeah,
and
you know, you need
so
to be busy. You want to be
yeah,
busy. But
busy's good.
I'm great. I'm really happy to be able to give the viewers this Christmas present. Okay,
Well,
Howard Hewitt
good.
for
It's
Christmas. Okay, so yeah,
Christmas time.
indeed,
Christmas
it's
time.
great to have you with us. How have you been apart from busy?
Been great, been really good. And actually, this is a rare time. Well, not really rare, because I know when my kids were little, when they were little kids, all my kids are grown now. But when they were little kids, I would always clear out
The diary.
The whole month of December, because it's Christmas time. I dedicate that to the kids and to
For
the
the
family
family.
and the whole thing. Now they're grown, then I usually work, up until Christmas, but I've never in my whole career, I've never worked on Christmas Day. So,
All right.
it's
Okay.
it's a
Not
good
even now
thing.
that you're a free bird.
Not even now, not even now. So, because one of my kids, my youngest daughter, her birthday is on Christmas Eve. So
Oh,
we deal with that, we have a little celebration, but now she lives up in Seattle. She's doing her doctor's degree in psychology. So she's
proud
up
dad
there for
moment there. Proud dad moment there.
proud dad moment, definitely. Well, all my kids, really proud of all my kids. But she's up there. She's the one that chose the academic road, and like, she's up there dealing with that. And she's got a couple more years, so it'll
Right.
be cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the others, what path did they take?
My son does music. My oldest daughter, she's into dance, a
Okay.
creative situation. She has different dance troupes. I mean, she teaches everything from Tahitian dance type of stuff, all the way to burlesque. She'll
Okay.
teach some
So
burlesque,
she's a
yeah.
proper dance teacher.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
the
she
real
does.
deal.
She teaches dance, and she's been doing that for she got a degree in journalism, never used it.
You
And
know what? That often happens. It often happens.
yeah,
People
I
go into
know.
further education and study themselves up with every book under the sun, and then that was never really their interest, and they
I
don't
know.
they don't
It's
pursue it.
crazy. It's
But it's
crazy.
better to be qualified than unqualified. I always say that.
I agree. I agree.
You
And
know.
then my next oldest daughter, she's just doing her thing. She's still just, she was into fashion, she was into music, and she was into, she's one of my freelance
So the
kids.
creativity gene has trickled down to three of them at least.
Yeah, my son, he learned guitar when he was started playing guitar when he was 5, and went on from there, and we've done a bunch of stuff through the years. Yeah, he's produced a couple things on me, so I was really proud about that too.
Okay. Music?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Are we
Yeah.
ever, do we ever get to hear what this is, or is it?
Well, you can actually go on to he goes by Christopher Hazel, Hayzel,
Okay.
and like, so you can go on YouTube and you can find a lot of his stuff,
Christopher Hazel. Okay.
yeah, Christopher
I'm gonna
Hazel.
have to do my research on
Yeah,
Christopher
yeah,
Hazel.
yeah, yeah. You'll enjoy it. He does some really good stuff, you
So,
know.
Mr. Hewitt, it is a pleasure to talk to you.
It's
And
great
you're
talking.
from where originally? Ohio.
Originally from Akron, Ohio. Yeah.
Ohio, right.
Born and raised in Akron, and I left there when I was about 20 years old, and came straight out here to Los Angeles, and just touched down. I always tell the story. I touched down in LAX after I bought my one-way ticket from Ohio. I touched down LAX with about $34 left in my pocket, but I was 20. I was 20 years old. No responsibilities, no wife, no kids, no nothing. It's
So
just
it's a
me.
little easier to manage on $20.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hey man, I had a ball. I had a great
Yeah.
time. It was like my cousin Michael, he's my first cousin, and my mom's brother's son. And he picked me up at the airport, man, and from that point on for about the next 8, 9, 10 months or so, it was me and him every, day in, day out,
So you
but
weren't
we
really just going to LA blind. There was somebody there
oh
for you.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, there
Okay.
was somebody there. I didn't
Because
I
that's a
didn't
big
just
jump from Ohio to LA on your own with no,
wait,
connection, so we'd say.
exactly. No, like my mom said before I left, she said, "Boy, you just flying by the seat of your pants, right?" So
You know
so
she
like,
was right. You know she was right.
I know she was right. She used to always say that to me all the time when I was a kid, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. But thank God, yeah, God I have a strong spiritual belief and foundation that has gotten me from point A to point B, and I believe will get me on through the X,
Yeah,
Y, and
you
Z.
kind of
So
get to a point where you realize, you know what, things will always happen as they're supposed to. So don't
as
sweat.
they're supposed to. You figure out different things in life, and what gets you, what solidifies you. I always believe that, you thrive in what your essence and your foundation is in. It's just like I always use an example of one of those plants out there outside of my window here. If you take that plant out of the ground and put it on the sidewalk, after a few days, it's going to shrivel up and it's going to die because you took it out of its
Out of its
essence.
environment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And if you try and take yourself or someone else, they try and take themselves out of that spiritual essence, what eventually will happen is you shrivel up and you die, because that's like, we are about, God's spirituality. I don't believe in religion so much,
As
because
such, yeah.
religion is such a dogmatic type of situation. If you don't do
Yes.
it, it's got that country club type of mentality. If you don't do it my way, then
Yes,
you're not,
it's always very either that or that. No
yeah.
options, no variables.
No, yeah,
It's
and
just
life is about variables.
absolutely.
That's how God made us. I
And I
just
think Bruce Lee is the one who said, made a quote, a brilliant quote. And I've kind of used it through life. It's like the more adaptable and pliable you are, the better you get on. If you stay rigid,
hmm
you are stuck in that place. And he
right.
pays analogy to how water goes into a jug and it takes the shape of the jug.
Yeah.
Yet still, water is the most powerful element on the planet, but it can
True.
still adapt to whatever space it's in and
Yeah.
either sit in it or destroy it. But it's that flexibility that's important in life.
True.
But I'm interested
That's a
in
good
what took
analogy.
you up to LA, because had your musical journey already started in Ohio and
Oh
that's
yeah.
where you went, or did you go to pursue it?
No, I've sung since I was 10 years old, professionally. It was
We
my
can
mom.
believe that. We can believe
My
that.
mom My mom was she was a professional gospel promoter, in the Akron, Cleveland, Canton area in Ohio. And she had a radio broadcast that she eventually was inducted into the Ohio Radio Hall of Fame. And it was a gospel show that she had every morning, every Sunday morning, for like, I mean, she had that broadcast for 30, 40 years actually,
Wow.
and and so like, she would bring everybody in from James Cleveland to Albertina Walker and the Caravans when Shirley Caesar was still with them. Pilgrim Jubilees, Volunteers, Five Blind Boys, Alabama, Souls, everybody, all kind of different, all kinds of gospel groups, that she would bring into the Ohio area. And then, and once the group she and my dad put together the Hewett Singers, and it was myself. I was 10 years old, and I was lead singer, and my sisters. I have four older sisters, and three of my sisters backed me up, and we had a bass player,
So how many
guitar player,
siblings are there altogether?
altogether six. There's six of
Six.
us. My four older sisters, and then my younger brother. My brother's like about 3 years younger than me.
Right.
And
So you two were
but
completely spoiled by the girls, basically.
you know, it's like sometimes now it's funny because I feel like the older brother rather than the younger brother because but then we have our we're a really close knit family all these years. We've always stayed close knit, and my mom and dad passed a long time ago. My dad passed in 81, and my
Wow,
mom
that is a
passed
long time.
yeah, my mom passed in like 92. And my dad was 59 when he passed away.
Young.
And yeah, very young. And like, I used to always say, I wonder because I was 26 when he passed away. And I always, wondered, I said, I wonder what kind of man I would be, because 26 is still young. 26
Very
is
young.
you're still
You know,
bouncing
at,
and
at 26, you kind of think you're all adult and know it all. And
yeah,
then, you
yeah,
realize as you start to climb the ladder, sometimes you look back and think, oh God, I didn't really say that, did I?
yeah, I know. And I didn't know as much as I thought I did. But
Exactly.
I always wondered, like I said, what kind of I would always wonder what kind of man I would have been if I still had my dad to bounce stuff off of for 5 or 6 more years or anyway
Right.
until I was in my 30s or whatever. But then you realize that, God doesn't make mistakes. And he gave me, my dad gave me everything that I needed and that he was supposed to give me
In
to
the
for me
time
to
you had him.
continue. Yeah, and for me to continue on in my journey, as they say.
So the siblings used to back you up, the three
Hmm.
girls.
Yeah.
Are the others musical as well, or are those three that backed you up still in music?
No, they all start. They make me they make me mad because it's like at the time, they started meeting their husbands and getting married and having babies and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I was about because we did that from the time I was 10, and then when I was like 14, 15, my oldest sister, she got married, and then she wasn't in the group anymore. My next oldest sister met her husband, future husband, and so on. So I was like, man, you guys aren't serious. You know what I mean? So like I went to from the gospel situation, I went into the R&B thing back in Ohio. And I mean it was like about it was seven, we formed a group some partners of mine, high school friends and stuff. That's got Marvin Burke and Ricky Parker, Ricky Fletcher, Byron Williams, and we all formed this group called Life. We spelled it Lyfe,
Okay.
and we were like seven of us. We were funky, man. We everything Parliament Funkadelic put out was like, was amazing, and we were proteges also of this other group back in Akron. Because see, the thing about Ohio was everybody talks about, must have been something in the water because, there were so many different types of groups and talented groups and that came out of Ohio. But
Yeah.
what I would always say was that there was nothing compared to the groups that formed and never got out of Ohio. I
Yeah.
mean, I saw coming up, I saw like, groups, man, and people that formed groups that were amazing, amazing, like this one, like I said, we were proteges of a group called Revelation Funk. And Revelation Funk had a keyboard player that only played keyboards and only sang background because he didn't consider himself a lead singer. And his name was James Ingram. You know what I'm saying?
Hello.
I know.
Hello.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. And like, I met James when I was 15. Revelation Funk was about all the members of Revelation Funk were about 4 or 5 years older than us, because we were my band, Life Band, we were about, like I said, 15, 16, 17 years old,
Yeah.
And so, but Revelation Funk's lead singer, to this day, Revelation Funk broke up years and years ago. And of course, James passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. But the guy that used to sing lead for them was this guy named Bernard Larson, and he's still in Ohio now. And when James was alive, he and I both would say how Bernard to this day could sing me and James out the door. I mean, this boy is
Really.
serious. Going when you talk about going from the natural into the false without any break, and that clear false that you have, and that's all that stuff, man, is like, I mean, he was the master of all that stuff, and he's still an amazing vocalist today, you know.
Right. But never left
Yeah.
Ohio.
Never left Ohio. Never left Ohio. When Revelation Funk left Ohio and came out here, came to California about, I guess it was about maybe a year before I came out here, back in
Right.
'76. So they came out around 75, about 74, 75. And but once they got out here, they were here for about a year and a half. And before they came, like Bernard never came out here with them because the Lord called him back to the church before they left. Before they left, he's actually a minister now, and at this church back in Ohio, and which was pretty good. He was, it was. I guess the Lord said, no, 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 you're not going to go
No,
out
that's
there.
not for you. That's not for you. You're not going
No,
anywhere. Sit right
no,
there.
exactly. So, those are the things you got to listen to as you go along in life,
Yeah.
James was like, once I got out here, when I came out, like I said, a couple years afterwards, and I connected with a couple of the members of Revelation Funk that stayed out here after they broke up. And it was and that I could one of the members was James. And we James came. I think I was in LA. I was out here for about 3 weeks or something like that, and I was staying in a place called Inglewood, and I connected with James, and he had been out here since Revelation Funk had come out. and he's connected with, he was working with Ray Charles, he was working with a bunch of other people. And so when I got out here, I called him, right? And I said, I'm out here, man, And so he came out and picked me up. He came from Holly. He lived in Hollywood and I lived in Inglewood. So he came and picked me up, and I hung with him all day. And he and his wife, Debbie, who was from Akron as well, they had just had their first little baby Jasmine. And I hung with James all day long, and went to the studio, went to this and that, and afterwards Debbie made dinner. We went back to their condo, in Hollywood, and had dinner. Then he drove me all the way back to Inglewood, and I was like pumped up, man. And I remember after when he was getting ready to drop me off, I said, man, this was great, man. I said, you're gonna, when can you come pick me up again? And and he looked at me, he said, Howard, this ain't Akron, man. This isn't Akron. In Akron, you could get from the east side to the west side within like 10, 15 minutes of each other. He said, you see how long it took us to get from Hollywood to Inglewood back to Hollywood. He said, if you're serious about what you're doing, he said, we'll connect again. We'll connect again. So, man, and I started my little journey, and as far as LA was concerned. And about a year later, I started working with Gwen Gordy, God rest her soul, Barry Gordy's sister, right?
Right, yeah.
And at the time, she had this group called High Energy. You can't turn me off right in the middle of turning me on. That
Right.
they had that hit song. And so I started working with one of her producers, and we were working out at her house in Beverly Hills, right? And we're working in the music room, and I'm sitting there. This cat, I can't remember, this cat thing was Kent Washburn or something like that, if I remember right. And I'm sitting there, we're working on some stuff, and then the doorbell rings, and somebody answers the door, and James comes walking in, right? And it's like he had some songs because Gwen was looking for some new material for High Energy for the group. And he came in with songs that he was selling, that he was peddling to for the project and stuff. And then from that point on, we stayed connected. And
Right,
then
yeah.
that's when we did he wrote PYT. We worked on the Thriller album together with PYT, and then some other stuff. James introduced me to Quincy, and then Quincy and I went on to work on like a Barbara Streisand project, Donna Summer, Ernie Watts, whole bunch of stuff through the years. So it
Yeah.
was really cool. Yeah.
But Ohio is one of those places, as you say, that has so much talent. And it seems like there's certain areas in the US that have that. Like Chicago is a place like that. New
Mm-hmm.
York, it's just endless with New York.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you know,
Now Atlanta,
yeah,
Atlanta's
Chicago, it's
yeah.
crazy. There just seems
Yeah.
to be certain spots where there's unlimited talent. So many bands come from there, so many great singers.
Right.
So my thing is, what made you choose going there as opposed to going to say New York?
Well, see, that's why I always tell people, because when people talk about because there's certain things about California that may not be appealing to certain situations. Like we have the highest taxes in the country, and financial economical things sometimes a little bit. But I've living here was not just something I wanted to come here and just haphazardly wanted to come here. I wanted to live I wanted to live in California literally since I was like 8 years old.
All right,
We
okay. So it
seriously
was
is that
more an ambition of going to live in California than pursuing the music in California.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the time, I'm like pursuing music. I did, when I started, 10 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old, you don't know that that's what you want to do for the rest of your
Yeah, yeah,
life. You're
yeah.
not even thinking about the rest of your life. You're thinking about right there, when you're when you're 10, 11 years old, you can only see about this far, this far ahead of
If
you. It's
that
not like
far, if
if
that
if
far.
if that far, so like, I'm not thinking about that, but as I got older and from that time, 10, 11, 12 years old, you're thinking about, uh you got to rehearse with the band, with the family group. But I'm thinking about getting out and playing with my friends and stuff like that.
The
And then
important stuff.
13, yeah, then 13, 14 years old, especially when you go from the gospel thing into the R&B field, R&B situation, 14, 15. Then you're thinking about girls. Now all I thought about then was girls. It was like, oh man, this is a great way to get girls, you know what I'm saying? And then 18, 19, I come out here when I'm 20. And then, your focus starts broadening out a little bit, and you kind of see, get an idea of where you're going and what you want to do. And then you start pursuing that. And thank God, you fall into the situation that you've wanted to, even subconsciously pursue. But when I was 8 years old, my family, my dad packed all six of us into the old station wagon that we had.
The
And
station wagon.
yeah, the station wagon with the wood panels on the side, almost like
Original.
vacation thing. Yeah,
Original.
yeah. And so like, he packed all of, my sisters and my brother packed us all in, my mom, his sister, my aunt Ida, God rest her soul, she passed away not long a long time ago as well. Packed us all in the car. We drove from Ohio, took a family trip all the way across the country and got to California. And, my mom's brother was living there, my Uncle Joe. God rest his soul. Man, everybody's gone, man. But
Yeah,
but
you start looking back in your past, and as
yeah,
you relaying the story, you're realizing this one's gone, that one's gone,
one's gone.
this one's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy. So like, but while we were here, I mean, we were here like I guess probably about 10 days or something like that before we turned around and started driving back. But while we were here, man, is like, I mean, I remember the palm trees. I remember the sunshine. I even remember because my uncle lived in Inglewood at the time. And I even remember the because Inglewood is close to the airport, right? So I even remember seeing the airplanes taking off from the airport. I remember all that stuff and got back home. And the whole time, I mean, my whole life until I was 20 years old, I always said, man, I'm gonna live in California. I'm gonna live in Los Angeles. I'm gonna live in Los Angeles. I'm gonna live in Los Angeles, right?
yeah. You put it
And
out into the universe. You put it out.
yeah,
You
I
called
just
it in.
just kept and I believe really heavily in that. Like I believe in uh visualizations. You visualize what you want to do, and because after I got out here, when I got out here, like I said, I had $34 in my pocket. That was it. And it was me and my cousin. We lived with my uncle, with his dad, my Uncle Joe in Inglewood, and like he had at that point he and my aunt had divorced, so he had this one bedroom apartment in this huge apartment complex in Inglewood, and my cousin had the big couch, and I had the little couch because he was taller than me, right? So he had the big couch, I had the little couch, and of course my uncle had the one bedroom because it was his place. So man, I mean, but we had a ball. We had no money. I got a little job, later on into the whole situation that gave me a little bit of money or whatever. But we just started living our life. And a cat told us one time we were complaining about not having any money. We were broke and blah, blah, blah. And this guy was from Ohio, and we were helping him. He was a friend of my uncle's, and we were helping him with the yard work at his house. And he told us something that like stuck with me the whole time. He said, man, it's better to be here broke in the sunshine than
Yeah.
to be back in Ohio with all that snow and cold and be
And
broke
broke.
back there.
And he was
So like,
absolutely right.
so I looked at that, man, and I was like, I never complained anymore after that, because that was so true, very true.
So this whole period with James Ingram and Quincy Jones, this was before the Shalamar gig.
It, no, it was no, it was after. Well, James and I started working together on stuff after we connected back when I was at
Right.
Gwen Gordy's. And from there we worked on, we worked on a bunch of stuff, like don't She's a Bad Mama Jamma.
Mm.
That song,
Yeah, of
She's a
course.
Bad Mama
Yeah,
Jamma.
Gemma.
That's me, James, and Phil Perry before any of us had a deal. James hadn't done Just Once yet. Phil didn't have his solo deal or anything like that. He
Yeah,
had
but you
worked with
see,
the
the funny
Monarch.
thing is, when you kind of know the music and
Hmm.
the artist individually, you you hear the track and you're thinking, these voices sound familiar,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
can't place them. These voices, but now you say
yeah.
that harmony where you la 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 la, yeah, you
Yeah.
can hear
But
that's
we started working with the cat that produced that was this cat, God rest his soul too, man.
oh,
Leon
stop it.
Hayward.
They're
Yeah.
all gone.
All gone, man. And Leon Hayward, he did that. So we did Bad Mama Jamma, we did Don't Push It, Don't Force It. We did
Don't push it, don't force it. That's Dynasty, isn't it?
well, no, there was like this thing, don't push it, don't force it.
Just let it happen naturally. It will only happen if it was meant to be.
Yeah, that's me, James, and Phil on there. Yeah, that's it. We did a
You
bunch of
see
stuff
why we
with
need to talk
Leon.
to these people. This is the real deal, okay? The real deal, the history of everything we've been listening to for the last 40 years plus.
40 years plus, man.
These
It's like
guys here.
crazy.
Pray
Yeah.
continue.
So yeah, so we did, that was before, like I said, before Shalamar, before Just Once, before Phil's situation also. We were just out there hustling,
Yeah.
so and then, then James, like I said, that was when I connected with Shalamar. See, make a long story short, I got the offer to join Shalamar. I was working at the time with this cat named Jeffrey Bowen over at Motown, and we were working on this girl named Tammy Gibson. She used to sing background for Wonder Love for Stevie Wonder, and she used to come. I connected with this place called Mavericks Flat. I connected with Mavericks Flat. Mavericks Flat is like a club down in the Crenshaw district. Was like a club down in the Crenshaw district. And this cat John Daniels and his brother Alonzo Daniels ran and owned it. And so, they used to put together show groups that would, and then they would book these show groups over in all overseas, UK, throughout Europe, Scandinavia, some parts of Asia. And so I helped put together this show group that we called Beverly Hills. and we started, working. Then we went overseas and for about a year, about a little less than a year. And then when I came back, I started kind of kicking around LA. I was about maybe 22, I guess then, about 22 years old then.
Right.
And I started kicking around LA, and Tammy came and sought me out because she was doing a session for this guy, Jeffrey Bowen. He was a producer at Motown, and he produced like Temptation stuff, Commodore stuff, and all that. And so he was doing this project on this guitar player, Eddie Hazel, who used to play guitar for Parliament Funkadelic. You remember that? Remember that old Parliament Funkadelic song is like a guitar soliloquy called Maggot Brains, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Remember your maggot, ding, 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 all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
That was Eddie Hazel, and so God rest his soul. He passed away too a long time ago, but he was doing this cat Jeffrey Bowen was producing a solo album on him, and he wanted it to be a self-contained situation. So Tammy, it was me, Tammy, this other girl, I think her name was Kathy something, and he wanted us to be the voices of the group. And so we started working on stuff, and I got into the union, AFTRA, AFTRA, and they were working on contracts, like for contracts for the group, but we never got to that because I was working with them for about 2 or 3 months. And then they started, the money started getting a little funny, and as they say,
The money's
that didn't
funny.
reflect. It didn't reflect the amount of time that we were working in the studio. So I called a meeting one day. It was on a Friday, and I dropped my lady off at the Soul Train Dance Studios. She ran the office for Don Cornelius at the Soul Train Dance Studios. So I dropped her off at work and said I was going to the Motown building, when it was up on Sunset and Argyle. And I was going to the Motown building to have a meeting with Jeffrey Bowen because, they giving me the Motown runaround and all that.
And the
That's what we
money
used
is
to.
funny. I love
Money
that.
was funny, yeah. And so like, I'm in the meeting, this was on a Friday, right? And I'm at the Motown building. They had the top three floors of this high-rise office building up in Hollywood. And I'm in there having, talking to Jeffrey Bowen and blah, blah, blah. And then the phone rings, right? And Jeffrey Bowen's co-producer, this cat Angelo Bond, that was in the meeting with us, he answers the phone and he looks at me, he says, it's for you. And I said, well, if it's my lady, which is that she's the only person I knew where I was. I said, if it's my lady, tell her I'll call her back. I'm in the middle of the meeting. I'll call her back when I get done. And he says, well, it's not a lady, it's a guy. He said, and this was before cell phones and all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
right.
So you could hear when you had a long distance phone call, you could hear the crackling on the line and all that stuff. And he says, well, it's not a guy, it's a lady, and it sounds like it's long distance, right? So I get on the phone and it's Jeffrey Daniel from
Okay.
Shalamar. And while I was overseas, while I was over in Europe with the show group that I put together with Mavericks, and Jeffrey and Jody and I met at Mavericks. All the Soul Train people used to come down to Mavericks on the weekend because it was like this little homey type of place. Jeffrey used to DJ there sometime. And the group that I put together, Beverly Hills, that I helped put together, when we would try a show out, we would try it out on the Mavericks
Mavericks.
at
Yeah.
Mavericks because it was a perfect audience to try it out because everybody at Mavericks, if you weren't somebody, you were wanting to be somebody. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but you could look out in the audience at any time on the weekend at Mavericks. You see Richard Pryor sitting out there. You see Shaka sitting out there. You see Lionel Richie. It's part of the Commodores. I met Ralph Johnson there from Earth, Wind and Fire. You know, he was one of the first cats that ever took me into the studio, into a professional studio before I got with Shalamar. And so, like, that's where Jeffrey and Jody first saw me perform because I would perform down there with the
Right.
group. So they first heard me sing there. And so, like, while I was gone, overseas with the show group, they formed Shalamar, and that's when they had that tune Uptown Festival that came out. It was an old Motown hits and stuff. And then they put this tune called Take That to the Bank out, right? And this guy, Gerald Brown, out of Cincinnati, sang Take That to the Bank.
Yeah.
And so they were in the middle of a promotional tour, promoting Take That to the Bank when they kind of got into a little argument, altercation, whatever you want to call it. But Gerald jumps on a plane and leaves them in New York, on the East Coast, leaves them in New York without a lead singer in the middle of this promotional tour. So when he gets on the plane, he says, Jeffrey said that he told them, well, just when y'all see it my way, give me a call, right? And he gets on the plane and splits. And so Jeffrey knows that my lady worked for Don. So he calls her to
Okay. Where
find
you
out
are.
where I
Yeah.
am, right? And she tells him that, well, he dropped me off. He's at the Motown building, having a meeting. And to this day, Jeffrey won't tell me how he got to that specific office where I was, right? Because the Motown, they had 17, 16, and 15. They had those three floors, all office buildings, all office floors. But he got to, to that specific office. And I get on the phone. He says, man, I know, that you're obligated to go back overseas with the show group and stuff. And he said, but we have this tune out now called Take That to the Bank and want to offer you an equal position in the group, as lead singer, right? And Take That to the Bank was a hit, was a good hit, but it wasn't like bam, you know what I'm saying? And so like
Well,
I was like,
stop right there. For me,
I
take that
know.
to the bank was banned.
I
Okay.
know for you, the UK and a bunch of places over here, it was the starting situation for Shalimar. And so like, he said, well, you're at the Motown building, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, where are you? I said, I'm up on in an office on the 15th floor. He said, well, Solar's offices are in that same building on the ninth floor. He said, and we've talked to Dick Griffey, who owned Solar,